Hi, welcome to this special series of Hurricane Helene. For the next few episodes, I have invited some industry people from the world of insurance, from reinsurance, modeling, agency president, the people who are serving the general public. And we just want to bring you the view of what is it like from the insurance industry perspective to see a uncommon natural disaster, catastrophic event at this magnitude. And in my opinion, this event will change a few things in the insurance industry of how we do things and how it's going to be handled in the future. So we're going to invite guests, come on the show, and just really have a deeper discussion of how this event will impact general public and also the insurance industry. So we thank you for coming on the show. Hi, welcome to this special episode of podcast recording of Hurricane Helene. And I want to bring you guys some amazing guests from our industry that have expertise, opinions of what just happened and what they think is going to change with our industry from this one single event. And today on my episode, with very, very short notice, with back-to-back power outages in his house, I have Justin Roth on the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Hey, I really appreciate you staying in contact with me on Saturday, Sunday. We try to pull this podcast off. So thank you for making the time. I know today, being where you are, what you do for a living, this is a super busy day. So I really appreciate you being able to pull this off and join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of things to do work-wise when it comes to helping out clients, but I'm happy to join you.
Yeah, so what I want to do is have you do a little bit introduction of who you are and how'd you get into insurance and what led you to here. And then we're going to dive right into this crazy hurricane that went from Cat 1 to Cat 4 in 24 hours, spread over almost 1,200 miles per hour, hit the U.S. continental, 1/3 of our land mass almost, and 40 trillion gallons of water dumped over 48 hours almost, right? And then just, we can talk about some challenges present, but let's just start with the introduction so our audience can get to know you.
Yeah, sounds good. So my name is Justin Roth. I am an associate director for CAT Analytics and R&D for Howden Re. I actually started my career over a decade ago as a meteorologist. I did broadcast meteorology in a couple different locations across the U.S., including Casper, Wyoming, and Lexington, Kentucky. And so after a number of years in the broadcast field, I made the pivot towards insurance, more specifically reinsurance, where I was fortunate enough to find a company that was searching for meteorologists to help them understand climate change. And that's where I really kind of dipped my toes into the insurance sector and started to begin my education on how this whole entire industry works. I've spent time at a reinsurance carrier, a primary insurance carrier. Now I am with Howden Re as an insurance broker, where my job and the job of other people on our team is to help our clients understand essentially the different changes in the models and give them some sort of view of risk that's proper for them, because every company has a different view of risk. And then obviously, like days like today and past week, it certainly live event analysis, trying to provide our clients with the most up-to-date data when it comes to loss predictions, and really just trying to help everyone understand what essentially just happened.
So in a very high level view, can you go over with our audience reinsurance? I mean, I've been in insurance in 14 years, right? I'm not even the best at explaining reinsurance. So in your 20,000 view, can you go over that? And why this event is so impactful?
It is, reinsurance is so nuanced. So think of it as this way. Myself, everyone out there, it has their own homeowner's insurance policy or an auto insurance policy. But when large scale major events happen, like Hurricane Helene, sometimes insurance companies need insurance. And that's where reinsurance comes into play. So that's all it is. It's insurance for insurance companies. So that way, we don't see insolvencies from primary insurance companies, and that way it kind of keeps the market stable, where everyone can stay in business and hopefully everyone can stay profitable as well.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And when you look at your role, what you have done from a meteorologist to what you do now, and then I remember somebody made a comment to me that not every carrier can afford one to have a meteorologist on their staff and to help them predict and build better modeling, build better actuary. How'd you jump into this field? Like people don't understand like how important this role is. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize how important this role is, right? And then just go into like what put this hurricane on your radar last week, and then at what point did you have that light bulb moment? It's like, oh my God, this is a big one.
Yeah, I think meteorologists in the insurance industry in general is a fairly new concept. And when I say that, maybe 5-10 years. And so what we've seen is really an extreme pivot, really, of trying to get meteorologists on certain staffs, whether that's at the reinsurance, the broken level, or just the general primary insurance level, because our background knowledge can provide such insights, especially in situations like this when we're having a large major natural disaster. I think it's kind of caveated with, yes, I'm a meteorologist, but there's certainly days where there's not a whole lot happening weather-wise in the United States. And so our role is very much intermingled with CAT modeling as well. And so I've personally done CAT modeling ever since I walked into the insurance space. And so being able to provide a meteorologist with the CAT modeling background and understanding only further assists the companies in understanding their view of risk. In regards to Hurricane Helene, that got on our radar probably last week on Monday, when we really started to look at this thing and say this one could be bad. If you remember, there wasn't a whole lot of lead time from formation up to landfall there. I mean, it made landfall Thursday night. And that's pretty standard with Gulf storms. Unfortunately, they don't have to travel all the way across the Atlantic Ocean for us to really kind of monitor it day by day. And so we knew fairly quickly it was going to be a bad one, though. We saw the indications how warm the sea surface temperatures were in the Gulf of Mexico, and to be fair, they still are. And so we did expect that. I don't know how many people really expected the amount of rainfall output that Helene ended up making, especially in areas like North Carolina. That wasn't something foreseen, on Monday or Tuesday. It became a little bit more realized the closer we got to the event.
For those of our audience don't know, I am going to post link in the comment section of how to follow Justin. You have one of the best content for anybody from the insurance industry on LinkedIn. I want to give you that shout out. And I think there's only maybe like 2 or 3 guys who are similar to your role, even putting out insurance content, weather content, talk about these events. So for the audience don't know, what percentage of hurricane come from the Atlantic, Africa side, and what percentage come from the Gulf side?
It's not necessarily a percentage, just because, hurricane activity or tropical storm activity in year A is going to be way different than year B. And there's a lot of different mechanisms that come into place, such as a La Nina or an El Nino cycle can really change that. The one thing I will comment on is what I kind of already alluded to earlier. Those ones that end up in the Gulf of Mexico, like Helene, are always just very quick hitting storms, just because of the distance. And so that preparation time is so much quicker. We saw this same exact thing last year with Idalia. It came out of the Gulf and it moved right up there, and it was a quick hitting storm. And, that's one of the unfortunate parts about it, is that there's just zero lead time. There's not lead time for us at the broking level to provide our clients with enough information. And then you talk about the people on the ground who live there, preparations to board up your house or do what you can or evacuate.
Yeah. And as we see death toll come in, the last one I saw was like an hour and a half ago. I think it was like 121. And there's more effort to look for a survivor, but everyone's challenges. There's not enough drones. All the roads are blocked off. The one that surprised me the most was Asheville, right? Asheville,
Yep.
North Carolina, being 6 hours inland. Those people live there from generation to generation, and they never ever had to deal with this. If you're from Florida, this is like, a yearly practice for you versus, Asheville, North Carolina, and they definitely don't have the housing code that is on par to deal with storm like this magnitude, right? I know this is so early, but what we learned a lot of lessons from Hurricane Andrew that changed the Florida insurance environment. And do you think this is going to leave lasting impact into North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee?
I mean, it's 100% going to be a lasting impact. I think the latest I saw from the North Carolina Department of Transportation, at one point they had over 400 roads closed in Western North Carolina. The I-40 connecting Tennessee to North Carolina is expected to be closed for months, because not the entire interstate, but about half of the interstate was completely washed away.
Yeah.
So, you think about building codes and building infrastructure and things like that, and we all know Florida has the best in the country. But I don't know if anyone foresaw a location like Asheville experiencing this kind of flooding ever. You're dealing with residents who live at a higher elevation than people in Florida, obviously, and they're hundreds of miles inland. So some of this stuff is going to be a little bit of a learning moment for residents, for city managers, and how they plan for natural disasters. But unfortunately, the recovery will take years.
So this is a pivot. Flash flood, right? Like when we
Yep.
had that much water at the top of the mountain, middle of the mountain, all getting rained on. So all that water go follow gravity and they go downward. Do you think whether flood zone or future ratings of insurance will change when you are sitting at the bottom of the mountain?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely should, and hopefully they do. I mean, I think we've seen this in previous years, not necessarily tropical cyclone related, but we've seen large rain events in like West Virginia and Virginia and those mountainous areas where essentially all the water kind of flows down to one little city down there and it gets washed away type of thing. And kind of a similar concept here than what we experienced. And we'll certainly see if things change in the future. But I mean, I think Helene had a little bit of extra factors working for it. When you see a tropical system moving towards those mountainous areas, it gets what we call orographic lifting in meteorology terms. And essentially, the lift of the mountains as the storm moves over the mountains creates more precipitation. And so that just kind of exacerbated the area.
The other thing I saw the last 2 days that was popping up a lot on Twitter, I refuse to call it X, I call it Twitter, is the frequency of people posting about dams and potential failure of dams, right? Yeah. And I was just like, okay, I live in Virginia. I'm just curious. Let me look up online how many dams are in Virginia. And what I Google was like, holy cow, that's a lot of dams in Virginia, right? Like, is there currently in the modeling right now that you guys will treat houses differently when within the path of a dam?
Yeah. So that was a lesson learned after Katrina, and the failures that city experienced, and a number of the catastrophe modeling companies started looking at dam infrastructure and including that within their modeling. The one thing you kind of have working against you is that, let's face it, in the United States, there's not a whole lot of flood insurance, or there's not people that buy flood insurance. Let's say that. And so regular insurance, your primary insurance really only covers so much when you don't have that flood endorsement policy on your homeowners or something like that. And so you're not going to be, we'll say, quote unquote, fully restored after a flooding event if you don't have that insurance.
This is going to put a stress test on everybody from the people that can handle the volume. Like I know today, Monday, like every single insurance agent's phones ring off the hook from a broker standpoint, and then on the carrier standpoint from claims, how fast can they deploy, how they deploy when you can't get to a road, right? Man, there's going to be so many people that is going to be challenged because this is a claim unlike any other claim we have seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of total losses.
What do you think in terms of preparations and notifications? I know that there's different modeling out there, right? Radar models. What's your favorite? Like everyone have a thing that they go by. Do you have a specific modeling that you favor over the other ones?
In terms of like meteorological weather models, I do believe, and I think there's a good consensus about this in the meteorological community, that the European model tends to do the best when it comes to hurricane forecasting. And some people ask, why is that? Because there is an American model called the GFS as well. But the European model, and the easiest answer for that is like they just put more money into it. If you put more money into a model, you can look at different data sets a little bit deeper, and therefore the model is calibrated a bit better.
So one thing I saw was one of the modeling predicted this Hurricane Helene so precisely that was only off by 10 miles in its path. Was that the European or the American model?
I don't know which one that was, but I mean, I can say that the National Hurricane Center, and I know we see it, once a year we see the cones and everything, but they have progressively gotten a lot better with their forecasting and where that cone of uncertainty actually is. I'm sure we could look at the first cone that they put out, and the last where it ended up going, and they tend to be pretty spot on, even as far out as they can be, which I think is positive. It gives us a little bit more lead time onto where these things are going, and hopefully it helps out the residents of the area too.
Yeah. You were kind of having a fairly quiet year until this event. And now we got two more on the radar as of recording this date, September 30th, right? There are two more on the radar, right?
I mean, in the back of my head, there's two more that we'll say monitoring. I think as of right now, it's a little too early to say this is for sure going to be a named storm and it's going to go, in this area. But there are two more out in the Atlantic that, and the Gulf that we are monitoring currently. Keep in mind, hurricane season ends November 30th. So we still got 2 more months of hurricane season where this isn't abnormal to see.
Yeah. Serious subject, but for fun question, for personal purposes. If you were to move into Florida, where would you move to in Florida?
Oh, probably Orlando.
Is that a safer area?
I mean, you could say it's quote unquote safer, but I mean, it's Florida. So who knows which area is the safest? I think all of Florida is considered a flood zone, and it's all hurricane prone either way. Me personally, I'm going to choose a more inland location.
So go back to questions on the states that's affected. We saw a lot of states that's usually never ever in hurricane conversation, right? Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee. Do you see there's going to be a trend in the industry of people hiring fractional weatherologists and people who do predictive modeling for CAT?
It's possible. Absolutely. My mind kind of goes to 2022, I believe, when Hurricane Ida hit Louisiana in the New Orleans area. And then it traveled kind of across the United States, but we didn't really see that large amount of rainfall and flooding until it went into the Northeast. And so this isn't the first time that we've seen large rain events from a tropical cyclone. And maybe this one is the last straw, and maybe some other companies decide, hey, you know what? Maybe we need to invest in something or someone.
Do you think in the future reinsurance gonna dictate that? Say, hey, for us to complete this deal, you guys need to have your cat modeling out.
You know, I think most insurance companies already have cat modeling. They have, if they don't do it in-house, they outsource it to a broking firm. So I think most insurance companies already have the cat modeling capabilities. What I think is needed is we don't really have flood. Flood insurance is huge. In Europe, they have flood insurance, and so a lot of that is covered. Not most, but a lot. And so, what do we need to get to that point? That's going to be legislation at the state, local levels, maybe even federal level, to kind of push insurance industry in that direction.
Yeah, I think there's going to be very sad lessons from this event to a lot of people. And, I really appreciate all the insights that you have for us. Is there anything that you can predict that this event going to change that's coming forward that you can see little change or a big change?
Hopefully it just changes people's mindsets. Where if I'm living inland, I personally live in Kentucky, and from Hurricane Helene, I was out of power for 2 days. There's trees down everywhere in my neighborhood. So, maybe hopefully it just makes people more weather aware.
Yeah. Prepare water, backup generators.
Yes, exactly. Some sort of emergency kit. 100%.
Yeah. What's fun is I was getting text message from all my families, and, they're like, it's going to hit Virginia, blah, blah, blah. We don't have anything ready. Yeah. I think this is wake up for all of us.
Yeah.
Justin, I really appreciate your time coming on, and I'm glad you came on and talked about this hurricane since it just hit us. Everyone's very fresh to it. So I appreciate your time on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.